today what we're going to focus on is how you can create a network of interconnections that helps you get the bigger picture on everything you're doing. And let's face it, product development, engineering, keeping up with technology trends can be a daunting task. And in some way and another way, everything is ultimately connected. So creating a view of everything that will help you build better products can result in some amazing discoveries, some very interesting innovations right here in your own personal brain. So I've got a personal brain open on engineering. And what I want to talk about is some very useful categories that you can create, whether you're a software developer, computer programmer, IT manager, to help you understand different technologies, trends, things that will be coming at you from an internal development perspective, from an industry perspective, and really have a complete view on everything that you need to get things done. So the top thought here in this example is called engineering. And then below that I've got various thoughts that represent key aspects of what an engineer or developer would need to do to create a better product. So clicking on any thought triggers all related pieces of information. So I've just clicked on product development. And this particular example is for an engineer who is working on several fictitious products about bookkeeping software. So here we've got links to the products, development schedule. And every time I click on a thought, that's going to go ahead and trigger all related pieces of information. Now you can see I've got my thoughts spread out a little bit in this view. I've got my distant thoughts turned on. I can go ahead and shrink that down to sort of our standard view, and even pull up our properties and attachments area so you can kind of get the view that you probably most likely be working in on a daily basis. So when I've clicked on this product here, what that does is that brings up all relevant pieces of information. So thoughts in my brain can launch spreadsheets, Word documents, or even web pages. And of course all I have to do is click on any one of those thoughts. I've just clicked on the javaworld.com link that was connected to the thought on Java, and it's taking me to that web page. So it's very easy for me to get to all the information that I need in order to work on this product. The other thing that you'll notice is below in our Tools area here, I've got the Notes tab open. And the Notes tab is also really great for just typing in key ideas. I might need to meet with a product manager to finalize feature list, hire a new developer. Any key ideas or issues that I have, I can go ahead and add those into the brain. Now it's pretty easy to go ahead and create new thoughts off this and make existing connections, and that's really where the power of creating that ultimate tech brain comes into play. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new thought under this product called New Features, Feature Requests. So what I've done is I've just dragged from the little circle called the gate to create a new thought below, a new category. So I've just created a new thought called New Feature Requests. And now what I can do, of course, is I can click on that and add any attachment. So if I want to add a Word document, maybe I want to make this an Excel spreadsheet of everything I'm doing, all I have to do is select that file, and that's going to attach to that thought. And from there I can go ahead and start working and so forth. Now if this new feature request is related to a particular programming language or a milestone or a schedule, I can go ahead and make a connection to product development. And now I've got that piece of information not only located under my roadmap, but under my product development section in engineering. So one of the advantages of the brain is that I can have these pieces of information effectively located under many different categories, and that's especially relevant when we're dealing with key technologies and technology trends. So I'm going to go into this area on technology trends here, and this particular area sort of maps out all types of key companies, for instance, that I might be following in the industry. And if I click on a company, I can go in and see what technologies they might be working on and how these technologies fit into the industry. So if I click on, I've just clicked on Google, and now I'm on the Android product that they've developed, and I can see that I've also been able to make a connection to an area in my Technologies and Trends brain called the mobile internet. So from there I can see that that's other mobile internet products. So what this helps me do is get a broader picture on the industry. So if I'm thinking of developing, maybe I'm looking at creating my own bookkeeper plus mobile product, what I can do is reference, there we go, reference these other products as well. So I'm going to go ahead now, and if I go back to Android, I can see that it functions on Google Chrome. It's developed on the Java platform, and that takes me into my Java area, which is under programming languages. So everything kind of comes together in the way that you'd actually think about it in your head. Often when we're looking at information in the file folder system, we'll just pull up this engineering folder. It's very linear, and yes, I can have a product vision document. I can have a couple web links here as well, but I'm sort of missing the broader picture on the industry, on my products, kind of looking at the information in this list view. If I come back to this view, I can make all kinds of discoveries that just wouldn't be possible. And I'm just going to give you an example. I'm going to click on C#, which is a programming language, which is developed by Microsoft, and I've got all sorts of other links to support that. So I can see, all kinds of things just by going into that. Or if I want to click on object-oriented programming, I can see that that was actually invented by Alan Kay, who worked for Apple Computer and Atari, and he's under Technology Inventors. And of course, object-oriented programming led to the object database, which is under databases, and from there I can go ahead and decide what database I might want my development project to feed into. So it's all connected, and by creating these connections you can facilitate sort of a velocity of development that isn't possible by looking at other systems. Now the other thing that I can do is use the past thought list to backtrack on where I've been. So if I want to go ahead and go back to my programming languages thought, or to the object database or anything like that, or Alan Kay, I can just click on that thought and move back to that area. The other thing that I can do is use my instant search. So if I want to go to iPhone, I can go ahead and click on that, and of course what that does is it's going to pull up all relevant information. And what you want to do is, of course, go ahead and add links as a developer, IT manager, to things that will help you get things done. So let's say that this particular project that I'm working on, my Bookkeeper Plus Mobile, is actually going to work for the iPhone. So let me just go ahead and make a connection to Bookkeeper Plus. And now in this case I'm going to have it as a jump thought, so I don't want it right below the iPhone. It's not part of it. It's not an Apple product, but it's sort of related. And now what I do is I have a link here to inside the iPhone development process. So this is a hot topic for any developers that want to get inside the the App Store. So from here, let me just go ahead and click on this, and I can drag and drop these links into my brain. So I'm going to actually go ahead, and I'm just floating my window or my brain like a regular window, but I'm going to auto hide that to the right so I can kind of click on and off. And now I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop this new link on Apple into the brain. And I can change this to whatever I want to say. Maybe I want to call this tips for acceptance process. If I want to get more information on just creating apps for the iPhone, I can actually go ahead and create a whole new section here. And add that thought, and then I'm going to use TheBrain's built-in search web feature, which you'll probably use heavily for sort of tracking trends and so forth. And that, of course, pulls up my my Google search results, and from there I can continue to build. So if I want to learn a little bit more about how to build an app for the iPhone, I'll just go ahead and click on that link. And we'll just give the web meeting a second to catch up here. And what I can do now is simply drag from the browser address window. So I'm just going to take this link and drag and drop this under Creating Apps for the iPhone. And I've got that there. And sometimes the link takes on the name of the web page is named it, and you also got the link label. You can switch those around if you want the label, which could be a more descriptive thought name. So I'm just going to click on the switch name label. So I've got that, and again, that's a direct connection to that particular web page. Now this works great. I'm actually showing you drag and drop through web pages, but this could be links to internal intranet sites. All of that can come together very nicely in your brain. Integrating existing information is just as easy. So if I want to go back and make a connection, I'm probably going to link this back to my my roadmap document. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect that there. So now under my roadmap, I've got this new area for creating apps for iPhone, which is of course under iPhone, which takes me to that mobile internet research that I'm doing. So it's all very easy and very flowing very logically together here. But I might want to integrate some existing information. So I'm going to click on my competitive analysis area here, and now drag and drop some information from my folder. So if I want to go ahead and drag and drop my, say, user testing report, what that will do is create a shortcut to where that file lives in my folder. So if I activate that thought in the Properties and Attachments area, you can see it's actually going to show me the location of that file. From there, what I can do is actually move that file into the brain, and that will then be stored internally if I want to clean that folder up, or I can keep that separate. So it depends on what you want to do, and there's really nothing that different about storing a file internal in your brain. Each thought has its own folder. I'll just open up that little folder for the thought so you guys can see what that looks like. And that's where that information is stored right there. And just as easily as I've dragged this information in, if for some reason I want to drag it out of my brain and onto my desktop, or even drag and drop that into an email, all I have to do is drag and drop this outside, and you can see that it's now outside. The other thing that I can do, let me just go ahead and come back up here to product development, is drag and drop full folders. So if I wanted to actually take this engineering folder, or even go a step further and take this whole customer data folder, I can do that and simply drag and drop that in my brain. And now what that's doing is it's actually created what we call a virtual thought, and it's visualizing this complete file folder hierarchy. So your tech brain can literally include pre-existing file folder structures that you have, and you can now leverage those. And the other thing that's kind of interesting about that is if I create a new folder in this system. So let me just go to engineering. Right now there's no subfolders in this, but if I create a subfolder for, let's just say, new products, what you'll see now is if I go down to engineering, that new folder is now created in TheBrain. So that works pretty nicely as well. So that's the way we integrate files, web pages. The other thing that you might want to do in your TechBrain is create an area for your team. So I'm going to create a new thought for my team. And what I can do is I can organize this in a couple different ways. So if I want to have an area for my, let's say, Java programmers, or my DBAs, my database administrators, or my IT managers, I can start to create categories for my team based on position and so forth. Now you can see here what I'm doing is I'm simply using the semicolon to create multiple thoughts. And I'm just going to add those in. Now, of course, I can go ahead and type their name in, but the other thing that I can do is I can drag and drop. So if I want to go to Outlook, for instance, and I'll just load my Outlook and go to Contacts here. And again, I'll just give the web meeting just a second to make sure we're all on the same screen here. Now I can simply drag. So if I want to drag Brigitte from my Outlook into my brain, I can simply drag and drop. And what that's going to do is going to make a connection to her contact in Outlook. And the other thing that's nice about that is maybe Brigitte is going to be the product manager for my new Bookkeeper Plus mobile product. So now I've got Brigitte connected to that new product. And I can continue to do this if I want to go ahead and select multiple contacts here. So let me just go ahead and hold down my Control key. Let's see. Get that window out of the way, and then drag and drop. I can go ahead and do that. And now you can see I've got a whole slew of contacts, and I've actually inadvertently dragged Brigitte in twice. I'm just going to go ahead and forget that. And you can see what that looks like. So now I've got my team. I've got all my development tools. I've got my product development schedule, all the key technologies that I'm tracking, all organized in my engineering brain. So I'm going to move to a couple other examples for IT help desk and network management. But before I do that, I just want to spend a little bit more time on how you create multiple thoughts and how you build key sections in sort of building your technologies area. Because in this particular example, a lot of it is creating that taxonomy that you can use to then further your own research and product development. And the way to do that is to sort of think of these broad categories that you're playing in, what space interests you, whether it's mobile internet, programming languages, or it could even be software applications, and then come in here and start sort of getting your ideas in the system for further expansion. So just as an example of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an area for web conferencing software here. So I've just created a new area in my software applications brain on web conferencing software. Now from here I could go out to the web and search for tools that fall into that category. In this case, I already know a few, so I'm going to just start typing in. So I'm going to type in GoToMeeting, and again, just use the semicolon to indicate that I want to create separate thoughts for each of these ideas. WebEx. So I'll just go ahead and add WebEx and Adobe Connect Pro. And there's a few others. I'll go ahead and add Glance in there. And that'll be good. So now I've just added 4 thoughts into my brain. The other thing that's nice is if I have a thought on Adobe already. So for Adobe Connect Pro, I'm actually just going to start typing in the first couple letters. And there you can see I've got all my Adobe products, Adobe Flex, so if I want to link that to something else. Or link it right up to that thought on Adobe under that company, I can go ahead and do that. So I'm actually going to unlink it from this other product and just have it right under the company. So it's pretty easy to go ahead and build these types of thoughts. Now the other thing that you can do is you can use your brain to evaluate different software tools. Of course you can come in here, and if I had sort of an evaluation process, I can create a form for that. So I'll just call this web conferencing evaluation process. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and attach a Word document. So I've got that there. But the other thing that I can do is I can use some tags to go ahead and classify this information further. So of course I could create new thoughts for front runners, but if I want a tool that offers, let's say, a flat rate for attendees calls, I'm going to go over to the tags area and create a new tag. Let's say I've talked to GoToMeeting and they're offering me a flat rate for call for attendees. I'm going to go ahead and create that tag. So now I can see which one of these products has that feature. Glance also has that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and tag that as flat rate. And now I've got that. Now the other thing that I want to do is add one of the other criteria for this evaluation process is recording and hosting of the meeting. So let me go ahead and add that in. And of course I can change the color of these things. So if I want to go ahead and tag WebEx with recording and hosting features, and go ahead and tag GoToMeeting with that as well. Now you can see what I've done is I've sort of created sort of a secondary level of categorization for this software. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead, and if I want to remove a tag, I could just go ahead and uncheck that. So that I don't want that on that category. I just want it on these products below. And that's the way that works. So the thing that's nice about that is regardless of where I am in my brain, if I want to go ahead and look at which conferencing technologies offer recording and hosting features, or just technologies in general, I can simply click on this tag and it'll actually pull up those two areas. And the tags are pretty nifty for a number of reasons. Let me just go ahead. I'm going to go to another example where you can actually use these tags for getting things done and really organizing time frame and so forth. So I'll just give this brain a second to load and the web meeting to catch up here. But in this particular example, you can see I have a number of tags for organizing as well. So the thing that's great about the tags is if I have a particular tag that I want to use, so for instance, when talking to the CEO, what I can do is launch that tag, and these thoughts can be anywhere in my brain. I don't necessarily have them all in one place, but now I can get to that piece of information. I can ask that person about the support for the laptop. Tag can also be very useful for organizing development and developers. So I'm just going to go back to my business area here and go to the section. Now I've mapped out people in this particular example. So I'm going to go ahead and go into this IT area. And I've got a bunch of IT managers here. And if I want to set up particular tags, for instance, based on their skill. So if Sandra Neal is a DBA, let's just say database programmer, I'm going to go ahead and create that tag. And now I've got her tagged. And let me just go over here and let's also tag Bill with that. Oops, I'll just go ahead and select that tag, database programmer, and move away. So let's say I am now in my HR section, or different section of my brain. You know, and I'm looking at building a new team. What I can do is actually activate that tag on database programmers and see who in my staff fits that build. And then from there, I'll just go ahead and create a new thought, and I can see it's Sandra and Bill. So if I want to go ahead and start creating my new project off Bill, say new development project, I can do that, and I'm going to link that back up to, let's say, my engineering thought here. And now that's all connected. So I've got Bill, who's a database programmer. Let me just go ahead and activate that. I also want to go ahead and get Sandra. So you can see you can work sort of backward and forward here in no particular order in organizing and classifying this information. Now, a couple more things before I pass presenter over to Matt. I want to talk a little bit about our different views and how they can be used for IT management. So I'm actually going to go ahead and activate my thought on my network map here. And what you can do is take all your applications, your servers, your databases, and often one particular application might feed many different databases, might be co-located, and it might service many different communities. One of the nice things about TheBrain's associative interface is you can effectively classify projects, applications, people under many different dimensions without duplication. So for instance, if I click on my applications here and go into CRM apps and click on Remedy, that's going to pull up all related information, and I'm not only going to get the right document, but I'm going to see what server it's functioning under, what database it feeds in, who supports it, and what user community is affected by it. So it enables me to have sort of an at-a-glance impact assessment of any application. And that's particularly relevant. So let's say there is an earthquake in San Diego, or there's trouble with the servers in this area. I can immediately see what applications are running on this mail server and who's affected just by looking at my brain. And we have some interesting views for that. You can see I'm in my standard view, but if I plus that, I can get that additional level of distant thought. So now I can see that remedy, if I activate that I get that additional level of thought. Or I can actually move to several different views. We have outline view, and outline view sort of lets me expand and collapse this ad infinitum. So you can see here I can continue to map this, and now what I'm doing is I'm just scrolling out, but it's really providing me with this big picture. I'm actually going to go ahead and use Personal Brain's presentation mode here so that we go full screen on this so you can see how nice this is. And now I can see that application, how it fits in all my servers. I can continue to sort of open and expand or collapse these different branches in this brain, and there's really no limit to what can be connected or added. Now if I want to go back to a different view, I can certainly go ahead and do that. I can change that view back to normal and go back to normal view. Or the other thing that I might want to do is go to expanded view. And with expanded view, what I can do is simply mouse over and expand and collapse. Let me just go ahead and select that again. And now I'm going to actually open up various clusters of my network and organize it in a way that kind of suits my purposes so I can have an even broader view on my brain. This expanded view and sort of organizing applications and development projects this way is very effective for consolidation of resources. Companies that are growing by merger and acquisition or consolidating will often have duplication of resources. So you'll be able to readily identify things in this mode, I can also make connections. If I now want this mail database to be hosted in London, I can go ahead and make that connection and look at that impact. I can disconnect certain things as well in this view, and I can save that view as well. So if I'm happy with the way this view looks, I can just go ahead and go back to view, and actually let me just escape out of presentation mode and show you how to do that. Just come over here and save that view as my, let's just call this my application review. So what we're doing is sort of combining that classic network map view with the ability to not only have the view, but to actually get to the data source. So the way we differ here is not only can I see my remedy application and activate that, but in the same view I can just as easily launch that administration guide in Word, or launch Deping's contact so I can call him immediately. So combining the overarching view with the data integration technology that we offer is really what is going to enable you to respond rapidly and get that overarching view on your IT organization or your products. So I have one more example before I pass presenter. It is a help desk example. So I'm going to go ahead and open that Personal Brain. And we do have a lot of IT managers that use Personal Brain for their help desks. And what you can do is organize your customer issues. So let's say you want to go into operating systems, and you can have thoughts for Windows Vista. And one of the nice things about that is you can actually have screen grabs of windows. It's very easy to take screenshots in Personal Brain and attach those to thoughts. So real quick, just to show you how to do that, I'm going to go ahead in the actually, let me just create a new area here, and I'll just call this Microsoft Word. And let's say people are having trouble with some of the menus, so I'll say menu issue. So what I can do here is go ahead and set up my screen, or this could be any picture, and if I want to take a picture of this menu, have that opened or whatever. And I'm just going to go ahead and go to the icon in the Properties and Attachments and select to capture a thought icon. And what this does is it pulls up the sort of Snagit-like technology where I can go ahead and maybe I just want this formatting piece of the application, so I can have that attached to the thought to look at for that issue. So now I've snapped that on this menu issue, and you can see that I actually have a screenshot of that menu attached to that shot. Now this is nice for all kinds of reasons. I mean, you can go out and even search the web or go to your graphics folder and get all kinds of images. So just to show you how that would work, let me go ahead and use TheBrain's built-in search web feature and go out to get some images on speakers. Now I can do a couple of things. I can actually copy these images and paste them as a thought icon here. So let me just go ahead and paste that thought icon. So if it's a web image, oh, I'm not sure if that took. Let me just make sure I've actually copied that. Let me copy that. Come back to speakers, and again, paste thought icon. There we go. And I've got that. But if it's not a web image, or you just wanted a particular part of an image, let me just go ahead and make this speaker system full screen. Maybe I just wanted that portion. That's where, again, I can go to that section on capturing thought icon, go out to that image, and now I'm just going to take the crosshairs, and let's say I just want the first two speakers, just want to crop it that way, and I'm going to go ahead and replace that image with what I've cropped, and now I've got that image associated with speakers. So that works really nicely. The other thing that you can do with that is cut and paste coding areas. So if I go up, I'm going to go ahead and activate my C# area in my brain here. Just go to Development Tools. And in this particular example here, I've created a thought for debugging expression trees in Visual Studio. So what I've done is I've actually taken a screenshot of the text visualizer, and in the notes area included some code samples, and I can just make this full screen of how to do that. So if you are a computer programmer and you're learning or keeping track of product issues, you'll find the notes area very useful for even cutting and pasting code that you reuse, taking screenshots of even modules within other Development Studio products. And of course you can use this feature for help desk, and of course relating that to whatever product you're working on. So another sort of useful tip for all you developers out there using Personal Brain. So I think with that, Matt, I'm going to go ahead and pass presenter over to you.
Great. Well, I wanted to give everyone just another example of a great tech brain that I've built. I've actually built this particular brain over the years. And I'm actually going to use my time here today to start addressing some of the questions that have come in. I'll show you really quickly the tech brain that I have. Let me just bring that up. And this particular brain, I need to be a little bit careful about what I click on here today, because this is an actual live brain that I use to keep track of all my different servers at TheBrain Technologies, both internally hosted servers and servers that we actually host at different facilities off-site at some of the satellite offices or at larger server hosting facilities. And I personally am not in the IT department, but I like to help out my IT guys as much as possible by not hounding them with questions about where a server is located, what's hosted on a server, what's the password, and so on. When I learn that information, I make a note about it in this particular brain. So you can see I can click right down to my servers, and I'll take a look at my internal servers and go directly into my Brain 05. This is a great example. This is a server that I use from time to time. I run some test applications here. And I can see right away, and this brings up a great point as to what is the difference. This question came up again in the question panel, just to clarify the difference between a thought type and a thought tag. The thought types that I'm using in this example are all simply color-coded. If I see an orange thought, I know that's a server. So Brain 05, ADP Serve, and so on, Brain 09, are all names of servers that we host. I can see they're hosted internally at the Brain Technologies corporate office, and I can see what some of the different applications are. If they're important to me, granted, I don't have all my servers here because I'm not involved with all of them, but any server that I ever learn about or have access to, I keep track of here. And I can see all the red thoughts are actual databases that are running on those servers, and yellow thoughts are applications that are running on those servers. So if I do a change to Brain 05, you can see down here in the notes section, I've got contact Juan for access to this server. I don't have the password. I don't have the rack number. Typically, I keep all that information down here in my notes field. But there's enough information on this server that it needs to be protected. It's IT access only. So if I make a change on this server, I need to either contact Juan, or you can see I've got one person connected. Dave is the actual manager of this server, so I can even make a new note down below. And I can timestamp that. I always like to timestamp all my notes so I know when I sort of took that note. And the notes field becomes sort of an ongoing journal or just information repository about the information of that server, of that person or application. And so that's the purpose behind a thought type. It is the actual descriptor of what that exact thought is. However, that particular thought type, in this case a server, it may have different attributes. It's always going to be a server, but it may have changing attributes. And in this case, I've made a change and I need to have that server rebooted. I can't do it myself, so I need to contact Dave. And I can actually go down to my tags, and I've got that already tagged as reboot needed for that server. If I also need this server to be updated, maybe I need a new version of Java installed on the server, and I don't have permission to do that. I can simply click on the plus and add another attribute, update Java. So I want the Java installation on that server to be updated, and I've got that tagged as well. Now the question came up, Shelley, when you were showing off some of your tags. Shelley had the feature listed where the actual tag shows up right there next to the thought in the Plex. And someone made a note, what if I have so many it could become redundant or overlapping here in the Plex? You can always turn that feature off. And there's a lot of these types of features that we just simply don't have time to show you all of them today. But that's one that came up in the questions as far as going into the preferences and into your look and feel here in your preferences in the brain. You can actually turn those tags, the hint that appears in the Plex, on and off. And right now I've got those hints hidden. So I don't see them in the Plex appearing next to the thought, but I can always go down to the tags and look at all of my thoughts that, or all of my servers that need to be rebooted, or all of my servers that are in need of a Java update, and so on. And as Shelley demonstrated earlier, you can create as many different tags for individual thoughts as you'd like.
And I think that's one of the key differences between thought types and thought tags. Just to clarify, with a thought type, that's sort of like the overarching attribute you're giving to your thought. So in my example, I had the company as the thought type or the application type, but a tag might be something a little more, I guess, frivolous or subjective, where I like this application, I don't. I need to tag this thought as pending CEO approval, and you can have as many tags as you want per thought, but you can only have one thought type.
That's right, and a lot of questions came up too. I think Rich had some questions about using Personal Brain for getting things done. And the tags is a great component for applying the getting things done methodology. Those of you that are familiar with GTD, a very popular book that was written and also written by a Personal Brain user. And most of the people that use Personal Brain for that getting things done, the GTD methodology, really rely quite heavily on those tags and setting up different, basically importance levels. Is this particular item due today? Is it on the runway right now? Or is this item, something due later next week? Is it at 10,000 feet, 20,000 feet? Where is it? Is it in its level of importance in my current day-to-day activities? And you can set up those tags very, very easily right here in the Tag tab.
And Matt, real quick, Al Perrin said that your sound was a little low, so if you could speak a little louder.
I'll do that.
You sound okay, but just maybe for certain lines.
Sure. One next question that came up was the question, I think Laurel had the question about adding, we've seen today that we can add in emails, we can add contacts, we can add any type of digital file, Word documents, web pages, and so on. But also the question came up about adding executables, so links to applications. And you can certainly do that in Personal Brain as well. I'm going to click back to the top of my this particular brain, the Brain Systems, and create a new subcategory for tools that I may be using. So different applications that and I spelled that wrong. So let me go back and fix that. Tools becomes tools. There we go. So I've got a different a specific location where I can add all of my tools. Maybe I have different editing tools for editing files or unlocking files or comparing apples to oranges, those types of tools. And I can very easily go in and open up my program files. And actually I've wandered here over into my iTunes. I don't think I would ever need that in this brain, but it's just a great example of an executable. All applications, typically, they are hosted in program files. They may be in different locations on different computers, but this is a very common location, and you can grab any executable, the launching mechanism for the actual application, and just simply click and drag that right into the brain as you would a typical Word file or anything like that. And clicking that particular attachment will then launch that application. I think it takes just a little while for my iTunes to pop up, but you'll see it pop up here in just a moment then. So you can definitely use Personal Brain for even launching all of your shortcuts as well. And then another question that popped up was the question of Autohide. And there you can see my iTunes is slowly opening up there. The question of Autohide, and there was quite a bit of discussion on Autohide when Shelley had her Autohide open. I think someone thought the actual Brain button was in the web page that Shelley happened to be on. But I think that is just because the web page itself was over against the right-hand side of the screen. Autohide is a feature in Personal Brain where you can see right now I'm on float. So I'm minimizing and maximizing the application right here from the taskbar very, very easily. I have the option of putting the Brain into Autohide, so I'm going to select Autohide right. And you'll see when I click away from the Brain, I don't have any other windows open right now that may confuse us, so that we can see that the little Brain button is right there on the side of the screen. I can click and drag a document and hover right over that Brain button and drop that document into the Brain. And again, when I navigate back to another application or over to my desktop, the Brain auto-hides itself out of the way. And I can move this Brain over to different monitors. I've got multiple monitors, so I can actually, you'll see it just disappear. I can take it over to my other monitors. I can bring it back and have it be in sort of what we call window shade mode, so it just drops down from the top, and really just utilize the application whichever way works best for you. So the Brain button itself was not appearing, just for clarity, on the browser window, but just here on the side of the screen. And that is a PC feature. So that's a feature for PCs. It does not exist. Another question that came up for the Mac version. The Mac version is I'd say about 99% identical to the to the PC version, which we're demoing on today. But that is one of the minor little features that does not exist on the Mac version. And also the question of collaboration popped up today. Personal Brain, as we've seen here, is intended for individual users. You can certainly host the Personal Brain files you're creating out on a network drive so that you can access them from different computers, but you can only access Personal Brain. You can only open up the Personal Brain database by one user at a time. So multiple people cannot open the same Personal Brain. That is something that we're looking into, and I'm going to give you a sort of a preview of some different features that we have out there, different options. The first is what we call Brain EKP. I'm just going to click and drag this over onto this monitor. Brain EKP stands for Enterprise Knowledge Platform, and as you can see, I'm running the Brain now in a web, on the web. So I'm actually at www.brainekp.com. And we don't have time, obviously, today to give a full, complete demonstration of EKP's capabilities. EKP is very robust, but the whole premise behind the application is that it is the Brain technology that is in a collaborative platform. So multiple people can log in to the same Brain. And if every one of us here today on the call were logged in and we were all on the IT thought, and I created a new thought right here in the web window, in the browser window on the fly, and called it my new ideas, everyone else would see this new ideas thought appear on their screen as well, if they had access to this thought. There's a whole level of different access capabilities by individual user or by group. And like I said, it's a very robust application. I can add attachments here. We keep track of version controls. And it has a very robust and powerful search engine as well. If you're interested in knowing more about Brain EKP, send a note into support@thebrain.com, and we'd be happy to set up a one-on-one demonstration for you to show you the capabilities of Brain EKP. But also, one other option that I'd like to share with you today is called WebBrain. And WebBrain is where you can take your own individual personal brain and host it online. There's no charge for creating a WebBrain. And anyone with Personal Brain 5 can actually upload their personal brain up to WebBrain and share it with others. Now, once you upload it into WebBrain, it's actually in read-only mode, so no one can go in and edit your brains that you've spent so long perfecting. But you can see here are some great examples of some of the popular brains that are opening today, as well as just a whole large group of different types of brains created for different purposes. And you can actually go on here and do a search for whatever your interests are and most likely be able to find a brain. But most importantly, you can take a brain that you've created that you are intend to share with your colleagues or your business partners, what have you. You can host brains publicly, as you see here, or you can host brains unlisted, so no one can find them unless they have the URL, or specifically privately, so they actually have to log in with a password in order to be able to see that particular brain. And I encourage you all to take a visit to WebBrain to see the different types of brains that are out there. And since we're on the subject of techie brains, and Shelley, I'm not sure if you demoed this today. It might have been on the question and answer.
No, I didn't get to Jerry's brain, actually. So if you want to
exactly
go in and show the ultimate tech brain, that's probably a good one. And then, Matt, we did have some other questions on link labels that I want you to cover, too.
Okay, great. Jerry is Jerry Mikowski is an internet guru. He's a fan of Personal Brain, and we're a fan of Jerry Mikowski. He's created just a fantastic brain. I think the last time I saw it, there were probably between 110, maybe 120,000 thoughts in his Personal Brain. Oh, it looks like 117,000 thoughts in Jerry's brain. And it's really just a fascinating brain to see not only how Jerry works, but you learn a lot about just how the world works and fits together. And the question came up also about people using the brain. Does it get a little cumbersome over time or overpopulated? And this is a great example of a very large brain that's still very easy to navigate and very fun to use. It's entertaining and educational at the same time. So I encourage you all to take a look at Jerry's brain. I'll go to the welcome screen. He even has sort of a good starting point thought. So if you're just visiting his brain for the first time and you're thinking, oh, there's 117,000 thoughts, what am I going to look at first? Well, let's take a look at what maybe your interests are, words that I love. And that can take you in a whole new direction. What's a great word? The word change. Well, change can be listed to, can be linked to all different types of even applications, as well as thoughts, ideas, subject matters, choices that you have in life, change versus choice, and so on. So it's really just a fascinating brain to get started if you're just learning about the brain and you want to see sort of down the road the capabilities of the application. This is a great way to do it. And of course, you can get to any of those brains at www.webbrain.com.
He actually has a tech taxonomy thought. If you use the instant search and do tech and scroll the taxonomy, since we're on the subject of building the ultimate tech brain, if you just type in tech and then...
Is it text taxonomy or taxonomy?
It's tech taxonomy.
Oh,
so if you type in TEC and then just scroll down to the taxonomy, a whole bunch of stuff under tech pops up. You can find that. This is a good example for those of you that want to categorize applications and software. You can use this. We can also send you my example of the engineering brain. That's a template for any of you. So if any of you want that, feel free to email me or support. We might post that to the blog later this week, but if you want that right away. So if any of you do need these sort of overarching categories to get started, I would encourage you to look at Jerry's brain because his tech taxonomy brain is huge, or go ahead and grab that zip file from us as well, and feel free to use as many of our thoughts in your brain that you find helpful.
Great. And also, Shelley, you had the question about labels. Link labels?
Yeah, labels for the links and adjusting. Sure. We spent some time on thought properties. One of our attendees had a question on link labels and link types.
Absolutely. And you can see when I hover over this particular link between Dave and Brain05, I can see that Dave is the manager for Brain05. And I've done that simply by clicking on the link and defining the relationship between those two thoughts. If I were to link another person to Brain 05, let's go ahead and link an existing person. There's Mo. So I'm going to link Mo up to Brain 05. And Mo is going to be the assistant in supporting everything that's going on this particular server. So I just want to link or click, on the link between those two thoughts and change the link properties. And just make sure that we know that, so I come back in the future, I know that Mo is the assistant for supporting that particular server. So if Dave's out of the office, I know the next person to report to. And I can set up a custom color if I want a color the color to really stand out. So we'll say we want to make a green link between those two thoughts and say OK. And I very clearly define the actual relationships that people have, in this case people have, with that particular thought. And the link labels are great also to, I've seen some very interesting brains set up so that they sort of become a script for a call center. And you basically get to a particular question and, does the user have Java installed? There's a link for yes and a link for no. And yes takes you in one direction. For the next question, no takes you in another. So there's quite a bit that you can do with those link labels. They're very easy to set up. And if you find that you're setting them up the same label between two thoughts again and again and again, you can actually go in and set up a new link type. So you can actually define the link type between those two thoughts. And so main contact, you can see if I was on another server, let's just jump over to Brain 09. And you can see Dave is the support there. He's helping on Brain 09, but maybe the main contact for this particular thought is Matt. And I'll set up the link type main contact. So I've got the link already set up there for me. So whereas Dave knows about Brain 09, Matt is the actual person that is the main contact for supporting that particular server. So that's how you set up the actual link types between individual thoughts. And again, it just simply defines the relationship between the two thoughts, whereas the actual thought types themselves are set up on the Properties and Attachments tab. And we saw earlier how thought types were set up. Keep in mind, you can also just set up an individual label. You do not have to set up a thought type for every thought in the brain. If you've got one particular thought and there's just some additional information about it, or maybe it's an acronym about that thought and you want that acronym to be searchable, I can go over to Tools, and maybe for whatever reason I call iTunes Music Player, CDs, Sound, etc. So I can set up acronyms or just additional information that will not only show up in the Plex, but they'll also, you can actually search on those as well. So if I do a search for music, you can see it actually finds that music label for the iTunes thought. So a lot of people that I've noticed use those labels for, like I said, acronyms or synonyms of individual words in Personal Brain.
And Matt, we had another question from Chester. Well, a couple questions since we're running out of time, so I'll just fire a few off. The Q&A is still very active. One was about, does Personal Brain have reporting capabilities? So if you can just give us a quick glance at reporting capabilities. And then Bernie had some questions about linking, can you link other brains within a brain, which just to kind of clarify that, you can't at this point link from one thought in one brain to another thought in another brain, but you can then import a full brain into another or copy and paste thoughts between brains. And you can store the brain file of one brain in another and launch it that way. So that's sort of how that works. But if you could cover a bit of that and reporting real quick, that would be great. And I'll fire off a few more questions too, because I know we're kind of coming up on the hour.
Sure, and the Reports tab appears down below in Personal Brain. You can see if I just run an open report, just click the refresh button there, you can see I get an alphabetical listing of all the thoughts in the brain. And I can use my mouse wheel to scroll up and down and go to any one of these thoughts. So you can see in this particular brain I've got about 95 thoughts in this particular brain. But I can filter my report results. I can filter them by thought type or by tag. So if I want to see, once again, all thoughts that require a reboot, there are the different thoughts I have that are requiring a reboot. If I want to see all thoughts with a specific type of attachment, so all thoughts that have a .txt file, or all thoughts that have a Word document, and so on. But I can also run specialized reports, so all thoughts with broken URL attachments. Maybe my brain is 2, 3, 10 years old, and I want to review my brain to see if I have any broken web links. Maybe I used to link to www.whatever.com. That website is gone now. What the broken URL attachments will do is go out and actually ping every attached URL to make sure it gets a response and give you a list of all thoughts that it gets what it considers an invalid response back when it pings that particular website. I can also run a report. We talked earlier about how you can have shortcuts to thoughts, or actually hold down the Control-Shift key and drag a thought to move that attachment into Personal Brain, the Personal Brain database. I can run a report under attachments for all internal or external attachments. So external attachments will be all of my shortcuts. You can see I've got 2. This is a pretty small brain for this. But in some of my other larger brains, I'll run a report and see if I've got any internal attachments, or external attachments rather, before I take my brain on the road or zip my brain up and send it to a friend, because obviously they might not have the same access to those shortcuts or external attachments. And finally, you can customize and really modify your own custom report. So I can go in and say, all right, I want to run a report, show me all thoughts that are an application, that are tagged update Java, that do not have the tag reboot needed, that have the following attachment types, and so on. So I can really customize this report to best fit my needs and save those reports that are unique to me and run those at any time. You can modify the reports by date range. If you're looking for a thought that you've added within the past week, it was a Word document, but you can't remember the title, you grabbed it out of an email before you even read it, you can find thoughts very, very easily that way. And then the next question that you had was, sorry, Shelley, what was after reports?
Well, I think we sort of covered it on the Q&A. It was, and Bernie, I think he had to leave on the hour, was just about linking and copying between thoughts.
Sure. At any time, right, you can merge 2 brains together. And of course, we've got a lot of different videos available that take you step by step through this process. So you can go to thebrain.com/recordings to find a step-by-step sort of overview of how these different features are run. But we do have merge brains. You can merge 2 entire brains together. You can actually take a section of a brain, and I'll do this really quickly. Let's say I hold down the Control key, and I click on a few thoughts here. I can also click on a gate. You can see when I click on a gate, anything connected to that gate is added here into the selection box. So that's the Control key on a PC. If you're on a Mac, that would be the Command key. And there's a lot you can do with this selection box. It's a great way to delete thoughts en masse if you want to delete an entire branch, or if you want to change thought types to a whole group of thoughts. You can Control-click around in different areas of the brain, add them into the selection box, and apply changes en masse to those thoughts that you've selected. In this case, I just want to copy the selected thoughts. You can see I can copy them as an outline or as a text outline with notes if I want to paste an outline of these thoughts into a presentation I'm giving. In this case, I want to just copy the selected thoughts, and I'm going to go over to just a sample brain that I run, my Area 52 brain. And I go to a thought in here, right-click, and select Paste Thoughts, and confirm that I'm pasting. And it's actually going to copy all those thoughts along with all their attachments, any notes that those thoughts have with them. It's also bringing with it their thought types, any attributes. You can see it looks exactly the same. I can see my server thoughts, I can see my internal, and I've got a database and an EKP application that are all being hosted on this particular server. Any notes I would have would appear there as well. So you can definitely copy and paste to divvy groups of thoughts up or merge brains together using those features. But again, I encourage you to visit www.thebrain.com/reports to take a more in-depth look, since we just covered those really, really quickly.